Of course, it's okay with you. Yeah, sure.
So Jimmy, will you be recording this? Oh, I think you already started recording it. Okay, that's fine. Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Great. So welcome everyone, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and I hope you're doing good. It has been a very, very challenging year for all of us, and I think this is the one of the major events that we have in Communication Society, and again in a row after ICC 6 months before this, we are still having our this major event remotely. But I do see that there are a few sessions that took place or that are taking place on the ground in Taiwan, so which is good news. And hopefully the next major event, ICC, we should be back face to face. Let's hope for the best. So I thank Professor Halim for giving his time out today for us as YPs, young professionals, under the umbrella of Communication Society. And we'll talk about the remit that Communication Society gives us the platform for. And obviously, I have to thank all the participants for actively pouring in. I do see the numbers still increasing. And hopefully we'll have a very, very interactive session today. So before I hand over the floor to Professor Halim and have the main to do the main talking of the session, I would like to take this chance to briefly introduce, or let's say reintroduce, the Communication Society Young Professionals group and showcase what we have been doing and how we all can become much more bigger and have opportunities for everyone around. So. As you can see on the screen, you must be seeing some big event names and as well as the standard, the periodicals basically that come out of Communication Society and the transactions basically. So this gives us the broader umbrella where we belong, and all of these are the venues which are heavily also including the young professionals. Be it Globecom, the ICC, be it as young professionals, we do get a chance to express our visionary ideas with the help of industrial collaborations or with our professors, if you're working as a PhD or a postdoc. And the venue for that is basically the communication magazine or the wireless comms magazine and so on. And obviously, standards is what comes out to be into real life. We do dive deep into our defined ideas and problems and try to come up with solutions that go into transactions. And those are our top-notch places where we try to publish. And those publications boast about the quality of the work and how they become part of our research community. So basically, coming down to the remit, basically the Comstock's areas of interest, as you might be aware that there are a good number of technical committees within our Communication Society. And this is a list of many of them over here, ranging from ad hoc to communications theory to data storage, health, green comms, radio comms, satellite, and so on. So if you see at the center of the screen, at the centermost block is where the technical committees are. But there's a range of different formations of these committees, and that starts off from as being as a standing committee, or is it a board or council, or technical committees which are listed down here, for example, and so on. So all of these kind of fall into a bigger umbrella of emerging technology initiative, and there's an emerging technology committee itself, which is open for every member to be part of. You can, take a chance to be in their meetings at ICC or Globecom and be a source of inspiration, come up with ideas and express them over there, and probably get a chance to have your own technical committees based on the remit of the committee if they find it timely. So with that, how do young professionals or this committee basically do what it does? So it is basically to find and engage ourselves together. And it's not only at the Comstock events like we are today at Globecom, but it can be at the local level as well. That is at the local Comstock chapters or local IEEE student chapters and so on. And the idea is here basically to connect and help from the technical perspective within the communication society, and more broadly speaking, even to our, let's say, STEM education onwards to undergraduate studies, to graduate schools, and so on. So all this, we try to, bridge that gap as part of this Young Professionals Committee over here. So yes, the talent gets recognized, gets highlighted, and here we are today, for example, getting a chance to talk to Professor Halim face-to-face. We had earlier today Professor Lajos Hanzo from Southampton, who also had this similar set of informal discussion with YPs. So this gives us a platform to do such activities. And obviously that such type of interaction with highly recognized professionals gets us a chance to get mentored, trained, and they have worked for 2 or 3 decades, and they have risen from, and they've seen all the stages for the past 2 or 3 decades within this wireless comms and the broader remit of ComSoc, and we can get this, while being part of the young professionals, and get prepared for the upcoming decade, be part of the next generation of our cellular networks, and so on. So our engagement has been quite extensive. As you can see over here, these are pictures from our previous events ranging from the past 2 years at Globecoms and ICCs. So as you can see, the last one at the right bottom, this is the one that we had our event in the ICC. So here we are again today doing this remotely. So contributions to the community, we obviously want to share your work and experience. As a YP community, this is a platform for all the YPs to get a chance to express themselves. So we have a blog. If you get a chance to visit the link over here, that's yp.comsoc.org/blog. You can see there are stories ranging from how young professionals grew from as a student member onwards. Also, you can see what they're doing in their PhDs or what they have been trying to achieve during their postdoc and so on. So it is an open chance to get in touch and express yourselves, your ideas, and that gets out on this website, and it's an open blog for everyone to learn from. So it helps us to share our stories across ComSoc and beyond. And obviously, there are many other opportunities, as you can see from the newsletter, that's a global communication newsletter, or the ComSoc magazines, and so on. So this is one of the screenshots just from the blog website, and you might see all these articles there as well. One of the greatest things that we have done this year, so this has been our old practice to give out awards every Globecom. This year we enhanced the award and we made it more challenging given the interest of highly talented professionals around the community. This year we had the award ceremony just 2 days before, that's on Tuesday. And you can see the latest award winners on this link, that is yp.comsoc.org/awards. And previous winners from the past at least 3 years that I recall, they include, winners from Nokia Bell Labs, IBM, Virginia Tech, and so on. You can see there are many more actually, but these are really the highlighted ones that have been put up here for the past 3 years. So yes, we do target to present at least 2 winners every year. We were able to achieve that this year. We had around above 30 applicants, really highly talented and ranging from industry to all the way to academia, and it was a very big challenge. We had a jury of at least 6 members here, 3 from industry, 3 from academia, and they really had a tough time to come up with those 2 winners. So what do we have in store as opportunities? So we can always visit the yp.comsoc.org/volunteer link, and also the other one given down for opportunities, find out what we can contribute to, irrespective if you're not able to find out anything that links to your objective or what you want to do on that link. It should not stop you. You can always write to us at yp@comsoc.org, and we'll be happy to have a chat and find out what can be done collectively. Just a quick note before I end my presentation, that is a Future Networks initiative. It is a very big platform where we can start, we can take a chance to put down your ideas and publish articles. It's not that let's say peer reviewed the way it is done in transaction or so, but this is an online platform where you get a chance to express yourself as well. I also am fortunate to sit on the editorial board of this one, so if there's any questions later on, I'll be happy to discuss that as well. So that's all from me. I didn't mean to bore you, but just to give you an idea all that how we stand as Comstock YP. And hopefully with this, I would like to now introduce Hadim. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Professor Hadim can take a chance to set up a screen in the meantime. So Professor Halim, so basically I'm going to take an untraditional route to introduce Halim. His accolades can be understood by giving the fact that he is a fellow of IEEE. I think that label itself is a huge respect and accolade to any personality or community. So with that, I would like to simply highlight that I personally met, since we are informal setup, so I'm going to keep it informal. So I remember I met Professor Halim back in 2010. That was summer 2010. And I was visiting Professor Halim for a very small research visit to set up my thesis for master's studies. So at that time, Professor Halim, even me as a very, very young student, made it a point to really welcome me so warmly and take me around, get me introduced to other fellow PhDs and postdocs in the group, and gave me full freedom to explore ideas and guide me through very short time that I stayed with him in Ottawa, in Carleton University. And I really had one of very, very, very good times out there, huge amount of learning that took place. And I was really fortunate to make out a paper out of that. So I can't thank them. And since that day to today, I have personally been looking at Halim as one of the great mentors for myself. So I wouldn't go beyond that, but that speaks how deeply I am connected or feel influenced with Professor Halim. And with that note, I once again thank Professor Halim to be with us today. And I request all participants to feel free to talk. You all have, so you might not have probably control on unmuting yourself, but please feel free to put down your your questions on Q&A or chat box. I prefer to put it on Q&A so I can take hold of one window. And once you have a question, I'll do my best to interrupt Professor Halim and get it out to him, and then he'll make a discussion of that. But if you feel that there's a need to unmute yourself, let me know. And Jimmy is with us from IEEE staff, and he'll be happy to facilitate, if possible, to unmute you so that you can have direct interaction with Professor Halim. So with that, the floor is yours, Professor Halim.
Thank you very much, Imran. It is a great pleasure to be with you on a topic that is quite near and dear to me. Oh, by the way, Imran, while you were speaking towards the end, the voice was a little bit choppy. Is mine good? Coming good?
Yes, perfectly fine.
Thank you. And you have the full screen of my slide deck. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Well, Imran mentioned that our friendship goes back to more than 10 years now. I had the pleasure to host him when he was a graduate student. And as Imran was saying, that even a paper came out of that work, but it is not a paper, a very good paper indeed, published in Transactions on Communications, and I believe it received today maybe 300 citations. So a transactions paper with 300 citations shows the really the work, and obviously the credit goes to Imran, even as a junior researcher at the time. He was very talented. All the best, Imran, to you in your career. Now, I'm also very happy to participate in this young professionals platform. I am very familiar with the initiative due to a number of reasons. In particular, in Canada and in Ottawa, we have a very active chapter. Now, I lost track who is in charge, who are the leaders at the moment, but Ziad Boutiva and Anastasia Garib have played a great role in nurturing this, and they have done an awesome job. I guess even got several awards. Okay, now let us go to the subject matters. The plan is my presentation will take about 20 minutes, perhaps. But as Imran mentioned, you are welcome to interrupt anytime. The more interactive, the better it is. Now, as the title says, this is an academic's perspective, and for sure there is an industry's perspective, why industry is interested in engaging with academics, their expectations, and so on. A small suggestion to Imran, maybe if today's session turns out to be interesting, in ICC 2021 Montreal, one of the young professional sessions might be from a big company which might have history like Qualcomm, Huawei, who support collaborations. I would be interested to hear their perspective as well, to complement mine.
Yeah, that would be great, Professor Halim, because even this year, I think it was on yesterday, yeah, we did have a kind of event from Globecom. They requested us to be part of this YP event. So we were fortunate to give them one slot, I think 2 hours yesterday. So definitely this should be the plan. And I think I will reach back to you once we start planning for the ICC Montreal to get that on board, definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Imran. Just a quick slide to introduce Carleton University. This is located in the national capital of Canada, established right after the Second World War. We have about 32,000 students. The biggest research-intensive faculties are engineering and science in the university. Two things are unique about Carleton. In Canada, Carleton is the only university which offers a Bachelor of Engineering program, a bachelor's program in communications engineering. This is more common in Europe, but not in North America. And also, I believe the subfield that Carleton ranks highest is telecommunications engineering, and it ranks number 27 worldwide in that field. Okay, now, even before agenda, I have a disclaimer to make, and that is my views are biased. Now, first of all, as I have mentioned in the beginning, there is maybe an industry researcher's viewpoint might be different than an academic's viewpoint in this context. But even within academia, different faculty members feel in different ways in regards to collaboration with industry. And my views are just one set of views. And I am biased because I am very much for collaboration with industry. So this is my year 22, actually, year 22 ended, just beginning of year 23 at Carleton as a faculty member. And since the very beginning of my career, I have had the opportunity and privilege, and I really would like to highlight that from my viewpoint, it has been a privilege and enormous experience to engage with industry. And that industry is not a monolithic block. I worked with small companies, very large companies, Canadian companies, international companies, and each of that adds to experience. So I am very much for, and let us see if you will agree or share some of my thoughts. Here is what I would like to discuss. There is a misconception about positioning government funds and industry funds. I have certain things to say about that. And then the second bullet is probably one of the most important slides, in my view, the secret recipe for success in these collaborations. And then I will continue with different expectations from different stakeholders, in this case, students who really do the work, or postdoctoral fellows in some cases, and faculty members are involved, and also industry. And then some dynamics of collaborations with small companies and large companies, which are kind of different. And then I have some final remarks. Now, there is a quite common perception, as I wrote on the slide, and it goes like this. Government funds are mainly for basic research. This is long-term research beyond industry's horizon. On the contrary, industry collaborations are topics more on the applied side, and they are short-term. This has some truth in it. However, I think it is way too overgeneralization. And the main reason is that the industrial collaborations come in a very broad spectrum. For some of them, it might be true that it is more applied than short-term, but that is not the rule. Now, first of all, in many countries, and I observed that firsthand in Canada, over the years, government funds has morphed into more and more matching, leveraging avenues. That is, if you want to go to government, seek funds for your research, often you have to go with industry cash. In the older days, in-kinds were also acceptable. That is a strong letter from a company saying that we would like to engage with this faculty member and we will do things together. So we are putting company time, but even that is having less traction now. Many government agencies would like to see the industry cash, and that really shows the commitment. And then matching opportunities might be one-to-one, one-to-two, even in some cases more generous. So the freedom to work with only government funds is getting a bit less in academia. Whether we like it or not, I am just saying this as an observation over the years. Now, the second point is this long-term, short-term distinction. Generally, this is presented in such a way that long-term is more scholarly and short-term is less scholarly, therefore it has less value. But I beg to differ there. The story is actually more complicated. Maybe I will make a bit of a blunt remark. I know that this is being recorded. In my view, a good chunk of the faculty members who claim that they do fundamental research only on government funds may not be truly aware what is out there. The standards, the state of the art. Some colleagues might be stuck in their PhD problems from 20, 30 years ago. Well, it is fundamental for sure, but the relevance might be questionable. I don't want to generalize that as well, but there is that component as well in that discussion that should be aware of. In particular, in engineering, in areas that I think, that my area, wireless communications, I guess all of us are in one way or another related to communications, things are moving so fast. If a student of mine comes and says, I want to work on this open problem, which is open for 30 years, I get nervous, 30 years unsolved. And if I solve it, probably it goes unnoticed. There is a chance that it may not be an important problem. Imagine 30 years ago, it is 2020, 1990. Many of you wouldn't remember, and even some of you were not born at that time. But 1990, I remember very well, because at that year, it is the start of my research career as a master's student. So it is the first time I really engaged with literature and things of that sort. So mobile communications was coming. It was the M states, first generation, even GSM was not standardized. So, how far we came today, we are talking about 6G and all kinds of fancy technologies. So what are we talking about as these long open problems? which is very, of course, suitable to mathematics construct. So again, if a student comes and tells me that I want to solve this optimally, I guess one should be cautious that even optimality, there is an engineering understanding and mathematics understanding. I distinguish sometimes with a capital O, if it is mathematics, that is, 100% mathematically the best. But in engineering, let us say that you are working on resource allocation, power control, and channel assignments, and so on. If you devise an algorithm which gives you 98% of the best value, shooting that to 99 will have, of course, scholarly value, but basically, from an engineering perspective, you have an excellent system already working. So once again, understanding the dynamics of 99% will help in many other ways, but it doesn't mean that we should spend our careers just to go from 98 to 99. There might be other bottlenecks in this overall system problem. Most of the wireless problems are system problems with many subcomponents, and they interact with each other in a very complex way. So let me park that discussion there and move to another point. Also, not all industry projects are short-term. As I will discuss in a moment, generally startups, due to financial pressure, they will be interested in some sort of a product sooner than later. But if you engage with bigger players like Qualcomm, which is, I guess, big supporter of this event, then certain divisions in that big organization indeed have long-term mandate. They would be interested in what might happen in 10 years. So I think we shouldn't make this overgeneralization that industry is always short-term. And now I will give you a secret. I hope there are not too many people from industry in the audience. When you engage with industry, obviously you submit a budget in the proposal, and it might be negotiated and it's accepted. But after that point on, often industry does not micromanage the budget. So then an office, maybe research accounts in the university will be in charge. Maybe that office might alert you that, hey, the travel budget is 10% in this project. Now you are doing a lot of travel. I mean, these constraints apply much more in a strict way with government funds, but there might be limitations with industry as well. However, what I am trying to say is that industry wouldn't know what you are, how you manage that money in detail, at least. What they would want to see is if you promise 3 personnel, they should be there, obviously. But then my point is, to make the long story short, it is in many cases possible to spare some money from that industrial grant and use it for your maybe long-term toy goals, toy problems. It might, with that money, you might have 1/3 of the time of a postdoctoral fellow. So the point is, once the funds come, you will have some freedom to allocate part of that. And one final remark, we probably will revisit this based on questions, I mean this entire discussion. Government funds are in particular extremely important for infrastructure. Infrastructure can be brick infrastructure or hardware and software in some cases. For instance, I submitted during the last year a proposal to both federal government in Canada and the provincial government to establish a 5G research lab, like with USRTs and network analyzers and things of that sort. It got accepted. I'm very grateful. Due to COVID, probably we will push purchased a little bit later because the university is closed. But obviously, you can't ask $500,000 from industry because you will have a research lab in the university. I encourage young faculty members to keep an eye on this infrastructure funds. Every country has that envelope. Generally, these might be sizable funds, and it will create the bottom line to engage with industry as well. Let us move on. So recipe for success, I think this is very important. And that is the arrangement, as much as possible, should be a win-win-win arrangement. So 3 wins, well, it should be win for the professor. By that, what I mean is that there should be something in it for me in this relation. At the end of the day, as a faculty member, my most valuable asset is my time. I do a lot of administration in the university. I do a lot of teaching, and well, time is limited, so I have this much time to do research, right? I can do, if I engage with this industry, probably I will have some returns, but I should remember that by allocating that time to that relation, I am also in a way stealing away that time from other things that I could have done. So for professor, especially from the time perspective, budget, and then how much time you are investing and so on, I will come to those a little bit more. And then graduate students should see something in them in this relation. And likewise, the company, I will open all of these in the coming slides. However, what does really win mean? That is a very loaded and kind of elastic word. And actually, that is, I think, one of the most important messages here. One should be quite elastic, kind of agile when it comes to the definition of win. There is no one single definition. And in order to even assess that, you should have a good understanding of especially the industry's expectations from that relation. And as I will show in the next slide, that is quite broad. Expectations might be very different from one relation to the other relation. And in many cases, this is not told very explicitly for a variety of reasons. So you should constantly gauge this, whether what I am delivering is satisfying the other party. And as I already mentioned, each relation is different. So the faculty members should have different adaptive modes of operation to deal with small companies, big companies, international ones, local ones, and pragmatism. Pragmatism, in my view, is very important. I really do not like whining too much. Yes, I don't have too many things. If, especially in the context of industry collaboration, and as a faculty member who values industry collaboration, I wish I were teaching in Stanford. Wouldn't that be nice, right? At the heart of Silicon Valley. $1 trillion industry in just few kilometers, literally. Great, great opportunity. Well, I am in Ottawa. I am very happy. I can do a lot in Ottawa as well. So it is really not very productive that I always think that I wish I were in Stanford. That really doesn't take you much. And actually, even if you are in a town, many universities are in towns in which there is even no industry. Now the world is flat with internet. Anyone, anywhere can do a lot of interesting things. And especially in COVID times, you even don't need travel. In the older days, there was an expectation that you have to go to conferences and everything. Many people wouldn't be able to go to Taiwan for a variety of reasons, visa, family, this and that. Now we are all engaged in the online platform. So opportunities are a lot. Focus on what you have rather than, again, whining about what you do not have. And readjusting, redefining this win is also extremely important. I also should mention that that definition of win, that is what is in for me, will naturally evolve as you move forward in your career. If you are a new faculty member, it will be miraculous in many ways if a big company, a big player, whether it is Ericsson or Nokia or Bell Labs, knocks your door and wants to work with you. Often that doesn't happen, right? Therefore, you have to, you may not have that much bargaining power, if I may say. This is just very natural, but you can use that initial relation to build a portfolio, and things can grow over time. Let us move on. Students' expectations are probably rather straightforward. It looks great on the CV. For instance, if you write in your CV that in my master's I was part of a Beyond 5G project funded by Ericsson, it looks very good, I think, for obvious reasons. Experience, training, correspondence with industrial researchers, their questions, it will for sure be quite an enriching experience for the student. Also, the student will be working on relevant problems. This might be in particular important for those who are planning for an industrial career. Lots of good connections, and actually in some cases that funded collaboration with industry during master's or PhD might result in employment in that company. But even the employment in industry is not necessarily a goal for the junior researcher. If she becomes a faculty member, actually, if she has left a good impression, now with the Ericsson example, Ericsson may want to continue the collaboration with her as a faculty member. It is a tremendous win for the student. And if the student is hired, the faculty member will have even a strengthened relation with the company, and that might result in more funded projects. So it is a very nice feedback loop. Now, the company's expectations is complex, and the spectrum is very broad. And as I have alluded to earlier, sometimes it is not clear, it is not told very explicitly. On the one end of the spectrum, this might be a simple donation. So if you get the donation, of course, it is you would be very fortunate. You can do whatever you want, basically. Of course, you can't use the money for vacation, for research, but no strings attached, no IP, no real deliverable, no deliverable period. Only big companies afford these, and they have actually formal programs. I recently was very fortunate and privileged and grateful to Nokia Bell Labs. Every year they pick about 20 faculty members around the world and they make a donation. So last year I got donation from Nokia Bell Labs International. I think 18 universities were identified. One was Carleton. The amount is not much, 50,000 euro, which makes, I think, 75K Canadian dollars. But again, no strings attached. I have for a long time an interesting problem in my mind, which I explored with one of my postdoctoral fellows, who is now a faculty member at the University of Saskatchewan. And I think he is in the meeting, Professor Ibrahim Bedir, faster than Nyquist signaling. It is a physical layer technology, but I didn't have any projects. And, you know, if no funds, no personnel, it's difficult to do research for me, especially I'm very committed, overcommitted, sorry. So I was able to hire a very talented postdoctoral fellow. I am currently supervising him with Ibrahim, and very good things came out. And now we are talking to many companies with those initial results to engage in bigger projects. So anyhow, these donations are very sweet, but doesn't happen very often. It probably happens once you are a little bit advanced in your career. And then in that access, in some cases, although this is not spelled out openly, some companies, especially operators, might be mandated by the government that say 0.5% of their revenue have to be returned to academic research in the country, things of that sort. So they support, again, I hope there are not many of them here, because they have to by government mandate, which is a very good program. I am, again, grateful to the government that these mandates are there, because in academia, we need funding to do research, and it is an outstanding mechanism, especially if there are some very profitable industries which are getting lots of credit from government and actually from taxpayers indirectly. It just makes sense to have these mandates. Anyhow, if that happens, again, although the project would have deliverables, but they would be very soft. So you can make presentations and talk about upcoming technologies, a little bit kind of soft, maybe consulting, like the company might say that, oh, there is, for instance, now big, let us say, hype on satellite networking. Is this really, what is your take? And you might have an hour discussion, and it might be very valuable for some decision makers in the company. Let us move on. Now, in some other cases, an important expectation from the company might be that they may not have much person power to do very long-term research and so on. So these collaborations would be their ties to the research work, and even to the talent, especially in these cases, they would probably target established research groups under the assumption that well-trained PhD students would be coming from these groups, and then there might be, hiring opportunities. Good PhD students will have multiple offers, so it would be a gain for the company if they can hire a really good personnel. Now, the real engagement in terms of expectation comes in this next category, and in this case, company expects real results, some innovation. But it might be, again, this is very sweet, and it happens with larger companies often. It might be the academic's call. So I might be given some funds from Huawei, let us say, because it is a very big company, it can afford to work in this mode of operation. And they say, well, it is wireless research anyway, and then there should be some title in the project, obviously. Let us say it is on next generation networking technologies. But then one of my students started playing with some physical layer thing, and then some interesting results come out. And if I tell the company that, hey, we are making some interesting observations on some MIMO technology, which is really nothing to do with core network, in that case, the company did not dismiss that, because they will think that, oh, this is a good research group, presumably good research. The company is big. There would be people working on MIMO. Although your project is on upper layers, they might connect you with some MIMO people in the company. Again, the expectations are real. So, they are expecting good research. Actually, it would be very disappointing if you cheer for something less than important, because you can cheer once or twice, but then the reputation is gone. So you, as a faculty member, You should be genuine. You should genuinely think that it is good outcome. Only in that way the reputation will be preserved. And as I will come, reputation is extremely important because we as faculty members, the most favorable relation is long-term relation. If I, after several years of struggle, get a 2-year project from Huawei, for instance, and then because of my mismanagement and my maybe a bit less than genuine relation, if I lose it after 2 years, no, the relation doesn't have to end prematurely. Most likely, they will let it go until the end. 2 years is no big deal. Anyway, they will give the benefit of doubt, but they will not come back. That is very important. I have relations with some big companies for 10 years uninterrupted. And that is all about trust and again, mutual confidence. I will also revisit that in a moment. And then the next level is there is real expectation, real engagement, real correspondence, real discussions, but at a particular research area. So the project might be on MIMO, and it will have to stay MIMO. Again, it is in my view a good deal because I wrote the proposal. Maybe I proposed the topic. It's all fair, and I would very welcome this type of relation as well. In some cases, I'm making a small deal out here. The company might be interested in IP. Some groups are more experienced in generating IP. Like in my case, from my industrial collaborations, there are maybe 37, I think, if I am correct, granted patents, all of them from industrial relations, and many others are under review. So a company coming to my group may keep that in mind, and that would require some negotiation, perhaps, including the university's research office on ownership and so on and so forth. But these are all doable. Just I'm saying this as a fact. From company's viewpoint, IP might be very important. Now, actually, I am trying to remember when Nortel went bankrupt. One can actually check the numbers. Now I will be saying in a vague way. Nortel had to sell its assets, including buildings and so on. But the most valuable assets was its patent portfolio. I think it had a portfolio of about 6,000 patents, and it fetched for several $7 billion. A consortium of companies purchased that. So, and this is actually like bean counting. You are not really picking important patents. A portfolio of patents, it might be very valuable. So if a company is giving a faculty member, let us say $200,000 a year, which will be a generous budget actually. And then in addition to other things, if a patent comes out, it might be quite a catch for the company. So IP is indeed valuable. Often the faculty members overlook that, but again, it might have value to the company. And then I'm just going through more and more in that broad spectrum. There might be a valve engineering problem. And in this case, some attention is needed. So here it is less of a research engagement, but it is more of an engineering engagement, and it may not be conducive for publications. As a matter of fact, it might be even difficult to present it as a thesis if there is a, let us say, PhD student involved. So a judgment call is necessary. These type of things with very well-defined and stringent deliverables. For instance, solve this problem or bring me a software with all the commands and so on for a particular task. This is like the company is trying to outsource a particular task which might be done within the company. And the reason why they would do is either they are understaffed or actually, again, I will make a very blunt statement, for cheap labor. Often the RA for the student research assistantship or even PDF would be at a level much less than what company would be paying. So in these last two categories, some judgment is necessary on the faculty side, but it doesn't necessarily mean a no right away. I will revisit this a little bit more. For instance, this might still a tremendous experience for the student. And the faculty might say that, look, I will not put too much of my time because it is not publishable or less scholarly, but developing this MATLAB code or Java code might be a great training opportunity for this master student, and then she will be employed in a good company, and overall it is good for my highly qualified personnel development and this and that. Or another option is the faculty might charge principal investigator fees. Many universities would allow that, which means that in this project there is some sort of consulting fee for you. And in that case, the faculty, takes that as a part of his consulting work. In many universities, the collective agreement between faculty members and the university officially acknowledge that faculty member can allocate a certain percentage of his time or her time for fee services. So it is all legit. There is nothing wrong there. But what I am, I guess, trying to say is that you should understand what type of relation you are getting into, adjust your expectations accordingly. What we are trying to avoid is hard feelings, and hard feelings result in due to misunderstandings. You shouldn't feel that I am exploited. No one should feel that I am exploited. If the company feels that, well, we are giving this fellow this much money, there is nothing really out, they would feel exploited. If the student says that the prof gives me $10,000 array, I am working day and night for this company's engineering project, he or she will feel exploited, and so on and so forth. So a very open assessment is very healthy early on. And as I am repeating myself, win is a very elastic word. It doesn't have to be one type of win all the time. For instance, if I have an ongoing multi-year relation with Ericsson, and in that relation, 5 PDFs and students are employed, so it is a big project, and I know that the company is under pressure time-wise because there is the next subsequent standards meeting is coming soon, and they are asking a favor from me, from my group. I would be willing to do that favor. Yes, this may not be publishable work, but it is my investment to retain this multi-year project. It is not always take, it is a give and take. But again, flexibility is important there. Okay, let us move on. Professor's expectations. Yes.
Sorry, Professor, may I interrupt you and probably give you a little break? So we do have some few questions. What do you want to take now?
Sure.
Okay, so the first one is from Metin Öztürk. He has thanked for your very nice session. And his question is as follows. Should an academic look only for calls, grants, etc., that's a special or official occasions to establish a partnership with industry? Or it should be in a way that the academic should always search for well-fit industrial companies and try to approach them in order to establish a collaboration? So how should we approach?
Yes, a very good question from Metin Öztürk. Again, my answer would be there is no one single method, and one has to be pragmatic. Now, if I am an established professor in an Ivy League university, most likely the calls I am getting from industry for projects and collaboration may be more than what I can do. So I have the upper hand to say no to some of them and pick and choose among the offers. But if it is a new faculty member, in my view, at least that was my case. I really cannot speak for everyone. Well, first of all, maybe I go one step before Imran and Etin. Academia is getting increasingly competitive. It wasn't like that when I started not too long ago, 22 years ago. For some of you, it is too long ago, but it's like yesterday as we feel for many things. Because there was no internet the way we know today, which means that certain people were more privileged. Like if you are in a good university, well-established reputation of the university, close to industry, again, Stanford guys, 20 years ago, they were in a much more advantageous situation. Not necessarily today, because today everyone can reach everyone else. So anyhow, long story short, I would say that be aggressively outgoing, not only outgoing, aggressively outgoing in the beginning. So going to conferences, just I am a little bit maybe going off tangent. From very early on in my career, I started going to ICCs and Globecoms, and then WCNCs, which is quite important in my area, and then other wireless conferences, KMR, CVTC. This is one of the biggest things I learned from my PhD. My supervisor, Albino Souza at the University of Toronto, at least at that time, was very much engaged in the community. So these conferences was part of my growing, if I may say, in academia. So, naturally, I really didn't invent the wheel myself. I was going as a PhD student. I continued that mode of operation, and it resulted in tremendous opportunities for me in a variety of ways. Going into them would derail us again. But first and foremost, talking to industry, present your card, don't be shy, and look for talk opportunities. It is very different to just grab someone and try to introduce yourself, which might be a little bit, what should I say, agitating. But if you give a talk, this might be a conference paper presentation. And then when you feel that it is well received and there are people in the audience, or you might actually make a round table in the beginning if it is a small crowd, and then you go and have a chat, it is very different. One thing that worked, just one final remark there, Imran, worked well for me was that in my PhD time, my professor, Albino Souza, he was a big shot in SPED spectrum. Those were the heydays of SPED spectrum, 1990s. And he would be making CDMA SPED spectrum talks everywhere and tutorials. So when I became and generally, at least my thinking or observation at the time was that tutorials are given by the best people in the field to teach that field. Nevertheless, I think it was year one or year two for me in academia as a very junior assistant professor, John Doe, as the expression goes. I submitted a tutorial proposal to one of the major IEEE conferences, and I forgot which one of that. And kind of very pleasant surprise, it got accepted. So, and in those days, again, when internet was not like this, tutorials could attract 100 people, paid attendees. It doesn't happen anymore these days. So it gave big visibility for my research, including to the industry, and that helped a lot. So to make just two comments very quickly. Number one, be outgoing and in an aggressive manner if your personality is not too shy. And secondly, look for talk opportunities. Pretty much everywhere. Talks are in the city IEEE young professionals everywhere has local events, industry has local events, so on and so forth.
Thank you, Professor Halim. There's another next question is from Evan. So one is, what are some of the major challenges that professor has faced during his early career for yourself, basically?
Yes, this is a bit, I'm not sure if the question is in the context of business relation or, industry relation, or a more generic question. More generic question, maybe I give a very genuine answer. Actually, I have a separate 2-hour talk that I make to my team and even to junior faculty members at Carleton University on tips to junior researchers. So maybe this is another young professionals tip. But one thing was that I did 2 mistakes in the early part of my career, which wouldn't be accepted today. Things were different 20 plus years ago. And if I were to go to tenure and promotion today, most likely at Carleton, my file wouldn't have gone through because of those 2. I wouldn't, maybe mistake is not the right term. Maybe being naive and not knowing the rules of engagement. One of them is that this is due to, again, I guess PhD plays a very important role in the formative years of a researcher. We observe from our supervisor how she or he works, conducts research. That's our training, and we continue. Now, a big advice, that might be good. Well, this success in research is very multidimensional. That my supervisor might be doing excellent in ABC, but there might be room for improvement in D, E, and F. So that experience is valuable, but we should always continue, be alert, try to learn from others, how others are doing. I always observe even my students, the successful ones, my postdoctoral fellows who became faculty members in many places. I learned a lot from my postdoctoral fellows. Some of them stayed with me for a long time. I feel privileged to have worked with them. Now, coming back to my mistake, my supervisor, Albino Souza, a great scholar, actually, in my view, the best wireless systems researcher I have ever met. That is, of course, a biased view. Your supervisor is like your father in many ways, or your mother, although our age difference is not that much. I think Albino is only maybe 8-9 years older than me. But in my eyes, of course, he has a very special place, a very sweet individual, but he doesn't pressure students. Now, this is good news on one hand, but then with publications, for instance, maybe this is the all-time scholarly attitude. If something good comes out, it will naturally get published, but no pressure for publications. So when I started my career, my emphasis was good work, but I didn't pay attention too much to journal publications. Now, so what happened was that when I went to, I guess, my tenure, I don't know, year 4 or something like that, I think in my portfolio, again, few journal papers. Actually, today, my master's students might be having more journal papers than me at my tenure time. By the way, it wasn't that the research was less than ideal. Actually, probably I did some of my best research in my very early careers. The conference papers I wrote in my year 1, 2, 3 got collectively thousands of citations in relaying and multi-op communications. And 2 journal papers I quoted in 2004, one of them got 1,000 citations with its conference versions, the other got more than 2,000 citations. So the numbers speak for themselves, but bean counting, that wasn't there. And the thing is, in those days, we didn't have bibliometrics. There was no Google Scholar and so on. When I look back, I can see that the work was good, but at that time, it wasn't visible. So when I applied for government funds, I didn't get as much money as I think I should have got in my early career. And the reason is my publication record was not being strong from a bean counting perspective. The second mistake is I was late in hiring PhD students. I was under the impression that I should first graduate a few master students, and then, so I think I graduated my first PhD, maybe, I think I was 7.5 years into my career. And one of my best students, I think, Imran, you would know, Dr. Abdul Karim Adinoyi, now with the Saudi telecom company. He had also an academic career, and we did awesome work. But from my people who are assessing me probably saw that HQP, highly qualified personnel training, was a bit less than expected. So because I didn't really know, there was no one holding my hand at the time, my two big advice to junior professors: try to recruit PhD students as early as possible, and pay attention to journal publications. Lots of work, in my case, just stayed as a conference paper, which could have become a journal paper, or the student left. I really didn't follow up in many ways, and it didn't get published. So it was a little bit of a derail, but maybe helpful for younger colleagues here.
Thank you, Professor Halim. The next one is, any advices on how young professionals should think, formulate, or approach to make the research more impactful, especially in the absence of industrial collaboration?
Yes. Now, I think expertise is very important. In academia, we are, I believe, extremely privileged that we can stay on problems for a long time. This is just impossible for industry. Even if you take the biggest companies with high-profile research teams, just every 2-3 years, every 6 months, in some cases, projects change, the company's emphasis change, so on and so forth. So, for instance, if I am working on the fundamentals of access, PDMA, FDMA, CDMA, very different blends of them, NOMA, doing in this way, that way. Staying on a problem for a long time really brings a lot of maturity. And when you talk to people, informed people in industry, that confidence shows itself. So if you are talking to experienced researchers from industry, they are also very well aware people. Actually, they have the advantage that they know what is out there, standards, field experiments, so on and so forth. So I would suggest that young faculty members should have a few topics that they should feel confidence in those topics. It might be something they have worked in the PhD for several years, and they might continue there several years as well. They should be, this is very important, Imran, they should be able to speak the language of industry as well. So especially in topics like 5G, beyond 5G, I think it is essential that you have some introductory ideas on what is cooking in release 17, release 18. You don't need to go and download all the technical specs and read them, so on and so forth. But if you are talking to an industry, let us say my work in recent years, you also know that I am doing some work on aerial networks and space networks. For instance, aerial base station, a UAV, you mount a base station, it's a flying robot, and so on and so forth. Anyhow, this idea is already endorsed by 3GPP. In January 2020, released 17 documents, and they have a name, UXNB. And B is Node B, that is base station. U is UAV. X is the air interface, like G, U, G, and B would be 5G drone base station. Now, this is a very simple piece of information. If I just browse through a little bit, I learned this in a few minutes. It's no-brainer. But if I am engaging with industry in this area, I tell them that I am working on aerial networks. And it turns out that I never heard about UXMB. It's not a good sign. So I should be able to know these key terms, key parameters, very much like, you know, Iman, you have been to Istanbul, Grand Bazaar, the shops, the shop owner can speak 20 languages, a little bit, to sell his rack. So we, in academia, we should be flexible like that. So we should know the non-academic or less academic terminology in standards, so on and so forth, so that we can handshake. Otherwise, people will think that, oh, this is kind of, he is in his ivory towers, very, very theoretical. So if industry people say that this is very theoretical, it is not a good sign. So you should actually give the impression that I am very solid in theory. This is my baby. I know this in and out, but I am aware also what is cooking around there. I actually even forgot the question now, but hopefully this discussion was helpful to some.
Perfect. There are two more questions at least right now, so I think I'll address them as well, and then we can continue. Is that okay?
Of course, of course.
So the next one is very interesting. It's anonymous, from an anonymous attendee, that often industries are very stringent over IP generated. So during association, they like to own the IP rather than share the IP. Is that a correct statement for all industries, and how to deal with such a scenario?
Well, this is a big question, and I'm afraid I may not have a satisfying answer for that. But a fact is that different universities have different rules, and a professor has to is obliged to work with, you know, university rules. That goes without saying. You know, if I have a consulting company and engage with industry in my consulting time, I can do whatever I want, and I can, you know, negotiate. But if the university has certain rules, then it has to be through them. So often industry people very early on will bring the IP discussion. And I think this shouldn't be make a roadblock early on. The faculty member should create an impression that there is a flexibility, and there should be a flexibility. You know, if the professor says that upfront, look, I work 50-50, it is not a good start. The best strategy is this. This is what I do. So when industry comes to me, here is, and actually right now, yesterday night, I sent an email, I shouldn't give names, a big international company that I submitted a proposal, it was shortlisted, and they want to make an interview with me and my team. But the first question, even before interview, is we want to own the IP 100%. Is that okay? Now, my answer was this. This is a research agreement, and as a person of Carleton University, I have to work with Carleton rules. By the way, our research office is flexible, so there is flexibility there. I will leave the negotiation to the research office. Actually, I am even not supposed to negotiate because I might say incorrect things which are not in line with the university's rules. But I add the following. I have enjoyed, this is precisely what I wrote in my email to the company. In my 20+ years of academic career, and this is, by the way, my first interaction with this multinational company, I have had a very rich collaboration history, and dozens of patents came out. We never had an issue. We always found a way to move forward. So it shows that I am open to discussions. I am not very strict that I need this percentage, that percentage. I leave this discussion to a great extent to the university, and it goes from there. Now, another very important point is this. It is extremely unlikely for an academic researcher to make money from patents that came out from industrial relations. This is everywhere the fact. If you want to make money out of that, and that is absolutely fair because there is a market, this is not a charity work, right? We work with a big company, they make $1 billion, this and that. So I'm not here talking about, oh, I am good in math and let me go to remote areas and teach mathematics to unprivileged people. It's very humanitarian. And then if I ask a consulting fee, it doesn't look good. You came here as a humanitarian project. What we are engaged in, well, it has training and education and everything, but there is a lot of money involved there, right? We can't be naive. And it is absolutely fine and legitimate to expect financial returns for the university researcher. There is no shame on that, absolutely. But then the mechanism, in my view, is not necessarily with the company. That is difficult. Due to a number of reasons, because companies, they have a portfolio, like, Ericsson and Nokia might make a gentleman's agreement that I give license to you, my 100 patents on MIMO, and in return you give license of 200 patents on some other technology. Your patent is one in that 100. Like, how do you assign a monetary value to that? So the way to make money is universities have technology transfer offices in many places. So you deal with that office, and basically you file the patent through university with a joint ownership model. That will change from university to university, but at that point, you are the owner. There is no industry. And then when the patent is granted, it can be licensed, it can be sold. Generally, companies may not want to buy single patent from a university because of a lot of overhead. But if, for instance, I'm giving an example from MIMO, if this university has a portfolio of 7 patents on different aspects of MIMO, it might be sold for $2 million for a big company, and then, here is how the return. Anyhow, I wasn't able to give a right direct answer, but I hope my remarks were helpful.
Definitely, Professor Halim. I think that at least it gave a direction from your experience, how we can take care of this issue from a bigger perspective while involving the TTO from the university. So one last question for now is, would you have a general advice regarding recruitment of PhD students? Considering how crucial they are for any research group, how do you approach the challenge of identifying young talents in smaller universities? Do you focus on external recruitment?
Well, again, it is a big question, and I should say that this is what I say in my other 2-hour talk on tips on conducting research. There is no one single method or mode of operation in successful research. I observe among my colleagues at Carleton University that my friend A might be doing opposite to what I say, and he's doing that in a very, what I say don't do, it is high risk. He might be doing it, or she might be in a very well manner and very successful research portfolio. So my first advice is, if you are looking for advice, talk to as many people as possible. learn about best practices. And in many cases, best practices are very much personality dependent. And then you find your own way. So I can say a few things, but again, don't take these as universal truths, just one faculty member's viewpoint. I think pragmatism is very important. Again, if I have had some success in my research career, I would attribute some of that to pragmatism. That is, I try to assess again what I have, and they may not be ideal. You know, I said that Carleton is 27th in the world in telecommunications, but as a global ranking of general ranking of universities, it wouldn't be in top 100. So I might whine a lot that I have lots of lost opportunities. That is true, perhaps to some extent. Unfortunately, people in developing countries, and that's where I am coming from, Turkey as a developing country, they are very class conscious. What happens in developing countries is that there is a very hard ranking of universities. And a student in engineering will target University ABC, top 3, let us say. If she ends up in 8th university, it means that she tried the first 3 and it didn't work out. Therefore, she ended up in the 8th one. In developed countries, that idea, that is much less class conscious. And I think being class conscious is not good in a variety of ways. But anyhow, it is there. So once again, a kind of a maybe mistake I made, well, since I am coming from Turkey, and then I know the best universities there. And then, in Turkey, many other countries like in Iran, in South Korea, there is a annual university entrance exam. In Turkey's case, 2 million people write every year. And there are certain departments who would take students from 100, first 100, 200. You can imagine, the lowest ranking student is 200 among 2 million students. Now, I targeted to, or my target was to recruit students from those very best universities. Like 20 years ago, that will be Middle East Technical University, my alma mater, or Bilkent University, which was just new but very good. And there are many other good universities in Turkey as well. But the fact is that I wasn't pragmatic. A student with 3.9 GPA from Middle East Technical University has kind of carte blanche from Berkeley, Stanford, MIT. They can go anywhere they want. And they wouldn't come to Carleton to work with Yanikomeroglu 20 years ago, who is nobody, right? So it really doesn't make sense. Now I am reflecting that I was killing myself, perhaps, to recruit students from in that way. I should have focused on what may work. Now, if 2 million people are writing the exam, and if there is a student which is 5,000, let alone 200, that student can do an outstanding work with guidance and proper training. So I am reflecting in my earlier career that I was overly class conscious myself. I educated myself over time not to look at things in that way. You don't need to be genius to do good research. A good researcher who is ambitious, actually ambition and taking it seriously is in many ways more than your ranking in a particular exam or even your grades. With proper guidance in open areas, I very much believe in open-ended, not open-ended, I think, forward-looking is the right word. Forward-looking areas, outstanding research can come out. So once again, long story short, we have to be pragmatic. Let us try to utilize the very best of what we have. It is a fact that in most US, Canada, European, Australia, and even now many other places, most of the graduate students are from the international market, so you cannot really rely on your own university's undergraduate students population. But if you can recruit a very good local domestic student, it's a big catch because there are lots of government funds for local students. I do not even need to give RA. Like in Canada, there would be very generous answer that will be the federal funding agency scholarships. So I be pragmatic. Don't put all the eggs in the same basket. Try to recruit good ones from your undergraduate class elsewhere. And another tip, Imran, I'm talking maybe too much now. This process is random. So you might do a lot of effort early on to get a good student, whatever good means, and then the student may not perform at a level of your expectation. This might be due to the fact that the CV may not be reflecting the reality. And in some other cases, the student might be talented and well-trained, but the life is complex. There might be something going on in that person's personal life. There might be an issue in the family, a sickness, problems with parents, spouse, you name it. So there is, in my view, no need to be too much distressed about a case that is not working properly. So always try your best in the outset, but know that statistically, because of all uncertainties in life, some cases will not work. Accept it as your loss, but focus on the cases that you are working. Like for instance, in Canada, you would know Tim Hortons, that's our Starbucks basically. I might have a Tim Hortons or Starbucks franchise, 10 stores. It is impossible that all 10 will be making big revenue, right? For whatever reason, two of them, for them, I don't want to lose money. If they are break even, maybe that's okay. But I shouldn't dedicate all my time and energy to bring the break even one to the most successful one, because that time could have been invested to already a successful outlet, and you can double, triple that one. So it is basically maximal ratio combining principle. So if it is weak, if it will not work, quickly wrap it up. If the student is in the PhD program, it's not going well, you might discuss having a master's. I'm not saying that quit. So quickly wrap it up. Don't offend the student, but time is limited, energy is limited. Try to invest that in positive places where the likelihood of return is high.
Thank you, Professor Hani. I think that was very comprehensive, and I think we all benefited from this. So I will leave the floor to you once again to continue the presentation, and we can come back to a few final questions at the end.
Thank you, Imran. As a matter of fact, many things that I will be saying we have discussed in one way or another. Here in this slide, I am thinking about professors' expectations, which are also kind of straightforward. But on one hand, this is the case especially in US private universities. It is the university mandate. Whether you like it or not, the dean will be on top of you that you have to bring money to the university. So it's really not by choice. But I hope no one is in that category. We engage with industry because we see value in that. So this, once again, from country to country might be different. In many countries, there is a lot of government support, even if a faculty member does not have much funds. students may have university support and government support. But in Canada, in a maybe a bit oversimplified way, if I don't have research money, basically I have no research personnel, which means I have no research. So if I want to do research, I need money. And even to tap the government funds, I need some industrial cash for leveraging and so on, as we discussed. So I mentioned traveling to conferences. I need money for that even. And then all the other reasons, working on relevant problems, engagements, long-term relations, creating job opportunities for my own students. All these are part of professors' expectations, and at the expense of repeating, not all of them will be satisfied in all relation. A judgment is necessary, and one has to be flexible. The difference between large companies and small companies, and once again, this is within my experience, and I guess people should hear from other faculty members as well. Large companies, almost always it is fun. So if a big international company, whether it is Nokia or Qualcomm, knocks your door, I think I would say that very good. Just try your best to nurture that relation. The reason is that in my view, the biggest reason why I favor working with big companies is that they have realistic expectations. And that is due to the fact that big companies work with several universities. They have big culture of working with universities. It is very similar to if I am an instructor teaching for the first time, I may have difficulty in expectations from a fourth year or third year student. I might be too harsh and fail 2/3 of the class unnecessarily because I don't have calibration. Big companies are like a professor who taught the same course for 20 years. He knows exactly what a good student means and what a mediocre student means. So that experience on the company's side helps a lot. And then often a big company, a research group, you will be dealing with industrial researchers with PhDs, they themselves value research, they would value forward-looking ideas, even if they are not implementable in the short run. And the last two bullets are also important. As we all know, it is very difficult and in some cases even prohibited by company for industrial researchers to publish journal publications. First of all, companies don't publish, they just have IP, so on and so forth. But if you want to get traction in industry, in the academic world, the way to go is to have a conference paper. Very quick, submit, accept it, move on. A journal paper, an IEEE transactions paper, you know the iterations, it may not go through. It's a 2-year process. So at that point, the company's interest has moved. Company wouldn't want their highly paid, a loaded salary, 200,000 UK person spending day and night on a journal publication, right? So if there is a co-authorship opportunity through academia, academic collaboration, a PhD in industry might very highly value that for personal enrichment and many other reasons. Actually, company might welcome that as well. Going back to MIMO example, now we have a new machine learning enabled massive MIMO paper, which will get lots of citations and so on. Ericsson is a co-author there. It is $1 million advertisement for that company in standards and everywhere. So this will be valued. Even a mere acknowledgement, if I write a paper with an industrial partner and say that this project is funded by this company in a very visible venue, I guess it is a big deal. And as I said, if there is a good relation, it might be long term. I gave an example from my case, but I know from other colleagues as well, it is not that unheard that a faculty member has a decade-old continuous relation with a major player. Coming to an end, now small companies, look at the title, can be fun. Some attention is needed, especially this is the way I see it. And the attention is due to the stress on the small company. Small company naturally would want to see a tangible outcome, not a scholarly contribution to a journal. And also to make the situation complicated, they may not have the expertise to deal with academia. The worst thing that should be avoided somehow is little money, big expectation. And in my experience, and I feel very, again, privileged really, that I had this experience. Let me give you an experience that it didn't work in a very funny way. And this is still rather early in my career. I forgot the time. But then, okay, this was right after the tech bubble burst, maybe around year 2000. I am a new faculty member. In Canada, there is a big automotive industry, and economy was in recession. Some factories were closing, and so on and so forth. So someone came to me and another faculty member. We had a meeting. He said that, look, you know, multi-million-dollar Canadian automotive industry is dying. We are losing jobs in thousands. We will collaborate and we will rejuvenate Ontario's economy. So they would give like $80,000 to two professors. So they are offering me $40,000. In return, I am expected to rejuvenate Ontario's economy, multi-billion-dollar return. So it is a no-starter. No matter what you do, you can never meet that kind of very unrealistic expectation. So some judgment, well, maybe I shouldn't have given this bad example because it is a rare case. I guess everyone is disciplined enough these days. Small budget is a concern, and another concern, as I alluded to earlier, is the work might be a bit on the engineering side. But don't write this off because remember, WIN is a flexible word. For instance, you may not have other relations and you may want to build a portfolio. So you might say that I collaborated with industry and this came out. Or it might be an opportunity for your student. Or in some cases, as I said, there might be some consulting opportunity for you. Just I'm saying that assess the expectations, your time and everything. Still, there might be a big gain. Prevent the idea of exploitation. So for all parties in this engagement, the worst is, again, the repeat of the very first thing I said, I am being exploited. If you assess the situation early on, adjust the expectations, hopefully that won't happen. And as I said, this can still be a success. So my final remarks, 4 golden points. Collaboration is a privilege. You know, yes, you are returning to company something, but they are coming to you and this creates lots of positive things in your research portfolio. Be aware of that. And therefore, do not take it granted. If you do not pay sufficient attention, it may just may not continue. And especially with big companies, there is the opportunity to have this project after project. If you don't get a follow-up project, what a big loss. So even if it is a returning customer, treat it as with the same ambition and enthusiasm as if it is a new customer. And then the worst thing is to take the money and run away. And this happens very often. And this is the biggest fear of industry. So they say that, well, we'll give this professor $100,000. For sure, something will come out. You know, I mean, you will be in jail if you take this money and use it in inappropriate ways. I'm not talking about that. What I am saying is that I promise that I will work on MIMO, and I know that this company has expectation on MIMO, and then I do other things, whatever. I really do not deliver what they want. That is not good. Again, the reputation will easily, even the research community is not that big. People talk to each other. It's obviously not a good strategy. And once again, trust. Trust is the most important thing I have observed. And it goes beyond business relation. It is the relation between your students, with your parents, with your spouse. If, this occurred to me in a PhD defense. I was invited to the PhD, an excellent PhD defense, we got a medal and so on, of a student in business as a kind of semi-external reviewer at Carleton. At least one committee member should be outside the field, just observing for the integrity and so on and so forth. So as an engineer, I have really nothing to do with the subject matter, maybe tangentially. It was about what are the roadblocks in Canadian industry making, international contracts and so on. And then, as you know, in social sciences, they often go and interview. So this student interviewed dozens of people, including executives from industry. And then, it was almost revelation, if I may say, to me. The outcome is that the biggest obstacle is trust. If the trust is there, no matter what you do, even if you present the best product, it is difficult to move forward. But if there is trust, things will move forward very easily. So let me bring this to industry. So let us say that I am engaged with a player, and for whatever reason, trust is there, maybe a returning customer. And once again, for whatever reason, I am struggling to deliver through one student or that year, that quarter, you name it. If the trust is there, they will say that, oh, look, Halim, he is working on a big problems. So yes, of course, 4 months, what do you expect? These guys are top researchers. They will make a big breakthrough, but we have to wait. On the other hand, if the trust is not there, I give you 5 journal papers, they will always be suspicious. Really, is this what we wanted? Is he doing something else with the money we gave? Maybe he's doing some other research with other companies. So trust is important in life. What to do? Well, you just to be genuine, honest, do your best, and then trust will develop naturally. Those are, I think, my final remarks in life.
Thank you, Professor Halim. I think, that was amazing, actually. So I will start with, at least I do see 2 questions in front of me right now. So the first one is more of a comment, probably, that I was impressed that a good PhD student should publish several transaction papers before the PhD thesis. Is it legal to make the work collaborated with industry as part of contribution to the transaction papers?
Oh, I see. By the way, good that this point is raised, and now I am thinking that probably I wasn't able to express myself properly, in the sense that some PhD theses might result in several papers right at the time of defense. Maybe that was your case, Imran, very highly talented students. But in some cases, it may not be the case, and it shouldn't necessarily mean that the student is less than ideal or anything like that. It, to some extent, depends on the area as well. In some areas, for instance, if it is real experimental work, it is difficult to publish in comparison to just simulation-based work. So there are a number of factors there. Not every student publishes very many papers. It would be good if there's an opportunity. Second, even publishing from the industrial work, and again, I am glad that this point came up, it should be negotiated early on. Actually, all contracts will have items around that. If the industry is don't want you to publish, that is again a very big question mark for the faculty members, whether you should engage in this relation, because after all this effort and so on, there will be difficulty for the student, because when the student is in job market, there will be an expectation that work is, well, basically, again, let me go one step beyond. All of us are writing papers. Okay, so I write a paper today in a transactions. It might have easily 40 references. Now let us reflect. The most recent paper we wrote, those 40 references, how many of them are theses? In many cases, zero, none. So I am periodically going to archive and explore and looking what is cooking in the areas that I do work, right? I don't do that every week, but I do that periodically. The most recently posted papers, at least I look at the titles. That gives me an idea of the dynamics in the research community. It never occurs to my mind that let me go to this university's library and check in the last 2 years what PhD thesis came out. The understanding is that the good work eventually finds its way to publications. So if we are preventing the student from publications, there should be some very good other reasons to include the student in the relation, maybe financial, maybe a job opportunity, but that needs assessment. It is also relevant to the faculty members. Now, in industry, in my actually experience with so many companies, I never encountered a case when industry terminally prevented me from publishing. What happens often though is, if there is a research conducive for IP, and just let me open a parenthesis here, research conducive for IP is a big question by itself. You might have a breakthrough proving something important, which wouldn't have any patenting value, although it might be very scholarly. Or it might be an idea like on a tablet, you move your hand and page moves. You can't publish that, most likely, but it might be a $100 million patent, right? So anyhow, well, now after going through this so many times in my group, I have a good feeling of what type of research is suitable for patenting. And when I think that it is patentable, at least as a potential, I bring that to the attention of industry. The funding industry, it is only fair. Otherwise, it will be dishonest. And then they make their due diligence, assessment. Big companies would have patent review boards. They might be meeting every other week, and there might be a big queue. So your invention might be scheduled 2 months down the road. So what I am trying to say is that the finalization of companies' assessment might take several weeks, in some cases a few months, but then they will come up with a judgment. They might say that, okay, we decided to file a patent. In that case, you might need to wait a few more weeks for a provisional, a quick patent application, which will give company a full 365 days to file what is called the utility, the actual patent, but then you can go and publish. Or they might say that, good work, but it is maybe not protectable. Like even the idea might be very good, but if a competitor steals this, we have no way to understand that because it is an algorithm deep down in the device. So it is not suitable for the investment. Then you are free to do whatever you deem appropriate. Short answer, delays might occur, and there are ways to minimize that, but generally companies will not prevent from publishing, and this will be actually part of the contract review.
Thank you, Professor Halim. This next one from Hafiz Al-Muhammad, who says, in developing countries, there are not many big multinational companies like IBM, etc., who are keen on research. Mostly we have to collaborate with small companies on engineering rather than research. So what is your advice in this predicament for us who are keen to foster academic industry collaboration?
Yes, what I am thinking is just be pragmatic. If that is what is available, then try to make best use of that with the best possible outcome to you. For instance, funding is good. As I said, you might take away a little bit of that, and then you might employ a student on your pet project, which doesn't have to be related to that. Or that small fund might give you the opportunity to go to 2 conferences and to do other things. And then even working with small companies, that might result in a lot of experience and know-how, and then you might start up your own company. As I am saying, success is not one KPI, key performance indicator. You know, wouldn't it be nice and a big success that you have a startup in a developing country and employ 100 people and big money, which is a win-win for everyone? Why it is less valuable than 10 journal papers? So the definition of success is also very flexible. Let us do our best and let us be creative. Let us not be too much class conscious or think that there is only one single path.
Thank you, Professor Halim. For now, those are the questions that we had received. And I think we have just hit the mark, almost just less than 5 minutes left. So I'd rather take this time to request if you have any final comment or thought before I can officially close the session.
Yes, I will really leave by thanking for one on this interesting topic. I had the privilege to share my experience with you. Once again, it is one experience. Try to hear as many as possible and find your own way. And secondly, I am very much in favor of IEEE young professionals. I would be delighted to contribute in some way for the young and energetic young generation, upcoming generation. So therefore, once again, I feel privileged to be in this platform and to be engaged with my younger colleagues. All very good. Imran, will this be posted somewhere so that I can share the link with some people who couldn't be here today?
Yes, definitely, Professor Halim. So as a notice to everyone as well on the call right now, this is recorded. It will be uploaded on a Globecom website. And also we'll try to extract for the Comstock YP website itself. And once it is up, I will share the link, or it will come from Shashank as well to all the involved speakers, and they will be they can share that link publicly, so that should be fine. But I'm not sure by when.
And in order to access that link, you wouldn't need Globecom registration, I suppose.
No. So since when it goes to when it goes to our Comstock YP page, it should be fine. But again, I'm not sure how this is going to work out. So there will be definitely a way that will come out. And once it is, then it will be shared to all the speakers and also all the registrants. And then it can be used public. But I highly assume that from the past experience, it's not password protected. So it should be fine. But once again, whenever it is ready, we'll let everyone know. So with this, I thank Professor Halim from deep down of my heart that he took this time out to share all these wisdom thoughts. And more importantly, I am very happy and glad to see that so much interaction coming from all the participants with us. I think we did a great job in exhausting Professor Halim's
Pleasure, pleasure.
experience, and it's good for us. And I'm sure we have learned a lot. And we'll come back to you as you have expressed your interest. It's more of our pleasure. You're going to come back and take your time in periodic ways within not only in this platform but beyond this. So for all the participants, on behalf of Professor Halim, I'm pretty sure he'll be very happy to answer your questions, even if you have after the session. You can email him, visit his website, check out his work. He's very open. You'll have a good time having another chat with him besides this session as well. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Professor Halim. Thank you, everyone who was here. Have a good time. Stay safe. Enjoy yourselves wherever you are. Work hard. And as Professor Halim mentioned, there's not only one KPI. You can define your own KPI. Do the best. Be proud of what you do. And hopefully, next major event will be face-to-face together. And enjoy the Globecom for this year. So take care and bye-bye.